Picture this. It's 2 p.m. on a Sunday. You're still in bed scrolling through your phone, watching everyone else live their seemingly perfect lives. Your laundry sits in a heap on the floor. There are dishes in the sink from 3 days ago. You haven't showered. And the voice in your head is getting louder. You're so lazy. What's wrong with you? Why can't you just get it together? But here's what that voice doesn't know. What nobody talks about. What even you might not realize. What if you're not lazy at all? What if your brain is actually working overtime, fighting a battle you can't see, protecting you from something much deeper than you understand? What if those days when you can't seem to get out of bed, when brushing your teeth feels like climbing Everest, when you criticize yourself for not being productive enough? What if that's not laziness wearing your clothes? What if it's depression, perfectly disguised, fooling everyone, including you? The difference between laziness and depression isn't always obvious, especially to the person living it. Laziness is a choice. You could do something, but you simply don't want to. Depression, on the other hand, is when you desperately want to do something, but your mind and body feel like they're moving through thick mud. Today, we'll explore 5 specific signs that can help you recognize the difference. More importantly, we'll talk about what you can actually do about it, because recognition is only the first step toward healing. But before we dive deeper into this, if you like content like this, consider subscribing. These videos take a lot of research and time to make, and your support really helps keep this content coming. Let's start with the first sign, and this one might hit close to home. Sign number 1. You feel guilty about your so-called laziness. If you were truly lazy, you probably wouldn't care that much about being lazy. But if you find yourself lying awake at night, replaying all the things you didn't accomplish, feeling this heavy weight of guilt and shame about your lack of productivity, that's not laziness talking. That's something else entirely. Think about Sarah, who spends her weekends scrolling through social media instead of cleaning her apartment. She beats herself up for hours, calling herself worthless, comparing herself to friends who seem to have their lives together. A truly lazy person would shrug and move on. But Sarah is trapped in a cycle of wanting to do better and feeling unable to, then punishing herself for that inability. This connects to what psychologist Aaron Beck discovered about depression and what he called cognitive distortions, twisted ways of thinking that keep us stuck. Beck realized that depressed people don't just feel sad. They develop harsh, critical thought patterns that become like a cruel inner voice. When you feel guilty about your supposed laziness, you're often caught in what Beck called the mental filter, focusing only on your perceived failures while ignoring anything positive you've done. Ask yourself this. When you don't get something done, do you treat yourself with the same kindness you'd show a friend going through a tough time? Now, let's move to the second sign. Sign number 2. Small tasks feel overwhelming. Everyday tasks that used to be simple now feel like climbing Mount Everest. I'm talking about things like doing dishes, returning a phone call, or even taking a shower. These aren't big, complicated projects. They're basic life maintenance. But somehow they feel impossible. Consider Marcus, who stares at a sink full of dishes for 3 days. It's not that he doesn't know how to wash dishes or that he's particularly busy. It's that the very thought of standing there, scrubbing, putting things away, it feels like too much. So he orders takeout again, adding financial stress to his emotional burden, and the cycle continues. Beck's research showed us that depression doesn't just affect our mood, it affects our cognitive resources. It's like having a phone with a battery that's constantly draining. Simple tasks require more mental energy than you have available. Beck called this cognitive load. When your brain is so busy managing difficult emotions and negative thoughts that it has little left over for practical tasks. The key insight here is that your brain isn't broken. It's overworked. It's spending so much energy on internal struggle that external tasks become genuinely difficult. How many times have you stood in front of something simple and felt like you just couldn't make yourself do it, no matter how much you wanted to? This brings us to the third sign, and this one is perhaps the most frustrating. Sign number 3. You start things but can't finish them. You begin projects with genuine enthusiasm, but somewhere along the way, you lose steam and abandon them. Your living space becomes a graveyard of half-finished attempts. Books you started reading, exercises you did for a few days. creative projects that are 60% complete. Let me tell you about Emma, who has learned 3 different languages to a beginner level, but never becomes fluent in any. She starts strong, downloads apps, buys books, practices daily for weeks. Then gradually, she misses a day, then 2 days, then gives up entirely. She calls herself a quitter, but what she doesn't recognize is that her initial enthusiasm was real, and so is the invisible wall she hits later. Beck identified something crucial here. Depression often involves what he called all or nothing thinking. When Emma hits a difficult grammar concept or makes mistakes, her depressed mind tells her she's failing completely. Instead of seeing learning as a gradual process with ups and downs, she sees her struggles as evidence that she should quit. But there's something deeper happening. Depression saps what psychologists call sustained motivation, the ability to keep going when things get difficult or boring. It's not that you don't want to finish things, it's that your brain's reward system, which normally gives you satisfaction from progress, isn't working properly. This isn't about willpower or character. It's about brain chemistry and thought patterns that can be understood and changed. When was the last time you felt proud of completing something, even something small? Now here's where it gets really interesting and where the laziness myth completely falls apart. Sign number 4. You have energy for some things, but not others. You'll notice that you have energy for certain activities. Maybe you can binge watch an entire series, play video games for hours, or scroll social media endlessly. But you quote-unquote can't do laundry or respond to emails. People around you might point this out. You have energy to play games, but not to look for a job. And you feel even worse, because they're right about the inconsistency, but wrong about what it means. Think about David, who can spend 6 hours straight learning about vintage motorcycles online, researching models, watching videos, participating in forums. But ask him to update his resume, and he feels paralyzed. His family says he's being selective with his energy, choosing fun over responsibility. But that's not what's happening. Beck's cognitive theory helps us understand this perfectly. Depression doesn't eliminate all energy. It specifically drains energy from activities associated with stress, judgment, or potential failure. David's brain categorizes resume writing as threatening. It could lead to rejection, judgment, disappointment. But motorcycle research feels safe. It's pure interest without consequence. This selective energy isn't manipulation or laziness. It's your brain trying to protect you from perceived threats. The problem is that depression makes your brain categorize necessary life tasks as threats. Notice how the activities you can do versus the ones you can't aren't really about energy levels. They're about emotional safety. And that brings us to the 5th and perhaps most telling sign. Sign number 5. Rest doesn't actually restore you. You sleep a lot or you rest frequently, but you never feel refreshed. You can sleep for 12 hours and wake up feeling like you barely slept at all. Or you spend entire days, quote-unquote, resting on the couch, but somehow feel more exhausted than when you started. Consider Lisa, who sleeps 9 hours a night and takes naps, but still feels like she's dragging herself through each day. She thinks she must be lazy because she's getting so much rest, but she never feels restored. She goes to bed tired and wakes up tired. Beck's understanding of depression reveals why this happens. When you're depressed, your brain doesn't actually rest, even during sleep. It's constantly processing negative thoughts, worries, and self-criticism. It's like trying to recharge your phone while running multiple apps in the background. The charging can't keep up with the drain. True rest requires a quiet mind, but depression creates what Beck called rumination, repetitive, negative thinking that continues even when you're trying to rest. You might be physically still, but mentally, you're running a marathon of worry and self-doubt. This is why depressed rest feels different from healthy rest. Healthy rest restores you. Depressed rest just postpones the exhaustion. Do you ever feel like you could sleep for days and still not feel rested? Now, let's pause for a moment and consider what we've just explored. If you recognized yourself in several of these signs, you're not alone, and more importantly, you're not broken. What you're experiencing has a name, an explanation, and most crucially, solutions. Beck's revolutionary insight was that depression isn't just sadness. It's a specific way of thinking that creates a specific way of being in the world. When we mistake depression for laziness, we attack the symptoms while ignoring the cause. We try to force ourselves to be more productive, more motivated, more disciplined. But you can't discipline your way out of depression any more than you can discipline your way out of a broken bone. The cost of this misunderstanding is enormous. People spend years, sometimes decades, believing they're fundamentally flawed, lacking in character or willpower. They exhaust themselves trying to fix what isn't actually broken, while the real issue, the depression, grows stronger in the shadows. Beck showed us that depression creates what he called a negative cognitive triad: negative thoughts about yourself, your world, and your future. When you think you're lazy, you're actually caught in this triad, seeing yourself as inadequate, your world as demanding, and your future as hopeless unless you somehow become a different person. But here's the liberating truth. You don't need to become a different person. You need to understand the person you already are. So what can you actually do with this understanding? Let me offer you 4 practical steps that align with Beck's approach to treating depression. First, practice cognitive awareness. Start noticing your thoughts without immediately believing them. When you catch yourself thinking, "I'm so lazy," pause and ask, "Is this thought helping me or hurting me?" Beck discovered that we often treat our thoughts as facts, but thoughts are just mental events. Some helpful, some not. You can observe them like clouds passing through the sky. Second, experiment with tiny actions. Instead of demanding big changes from yourself, try what I call micro-commitments. Don't commit to cleaning your entire house. Commit to washing one dish. Don't commit to exercising for an hour. Commit to putting on your workout clothes. Depression makes everything feel enormous, so make things genuinely small. Success builds success. Third, challenge all or nothing thinking. When Beck worked with depressed patients, he found they often saw situations in extremes: complete success or total failure. Practice seeing the middle ground. If you plan to clean for 2 hours but only manage 20 minutes, that's not failure. That's progress. Partial completion is still completion. Fourth, seek professional support. This isn't about weakness or inability to handle things yourself. Depression is a real condition that responds well to treatment. Beck developed cognitive behavioral therapy specifically for depression, and it's remarkably effective. Therapy isn't about fixing what's wrong with you. It's about learning tools that help you think and feel differently. Remember, healing isn't about becoming someone else. It's about removing the barriers that prevent you from being who you already are. Let me leave you with this thought. If you've made it this far, you've already demonstrated something important. You care about understanding yourself better. That curiosity, that willingness to look deeper than surface explanations, that's not laziness. That's wisdom. Aaron Beck spent his life proving that our minds are not our masters, but our tools. The thoughts and feelings you experience are information, not instructions. They're data points in a larger story about your inner world, not verdicts about your character. The next time you catch yourself thinking you're lazy, remember this. Laziness is a choice, but depression is a condition. One deserves judgment, the other deserves compassion. Most importantly, depression is treatable, changeable, and temporary, even when it doesn't feel that way. As Beck once wrote, "The way you think determines the way you feel." The beautiful flip side of that insight is this. When you change the way you think, you change the way you feel. And that change is always possible. If this video helped you see yourself differently, I'd love to know which sign resonated with you most. Leave a comment below. Sometimes sharing these realizations helps not just you, but others who are going through similar struggles. And if you want more content that helps you understand your inner world, consider subscribing. Remember, you're not lazy, you're human, and that's more than enough.